Roundtable Live. And welcome, Gail. Glad you could join me.
Hi.
And today we are talking about influencer marketing and the evolution of influencer marketing. And I actually had to do some research on this. I found this really interesting, Gail, as far as where it started. Now, I didn't find the year, I didn't look that up yet. I suppose if we were using AI, we could ask, is she, no, Alexa's not in here. Could ask Alexa to answer that one, but I'd rather actually do it the old fashioned way and look it up. but, um, but I did read about how they had the macro influencers as far as those that had over 100,000 followers and so forth, and that's how it started. And then it went into the micro, which was more the small mom and pop, the bloggers, because of authenticity. Had you heard that as far as the that evolution?
Well, right. So, depending on what the brand wants, which kind of influencer you need, is very different, right? It's very
Hmm.
different. And the reason micro influencers can be better than macro influencers for a lot of things is that they have a closer relationship with the people that follow them, right? So, when
Right.
I had 100,000 followers, I didn't get as much engagement per follower as Eileen when she was limiting her Twitter followers to 3,000,
Right.
right? And then there's
Right.
Mike Alton, who only tweets once a day, right? So he
Does he
gets
keep it
far
to
more
once?
engagement per tweet than any of us who do Twitter chats could possibly get.
Hmm. Does he really? He limits it to once a day?
Well, he did back in the day. I don't know if he still does.
Hmm. So he's getting a lot of responses to that one tweet because, like,
Well,
oh
yeah,
wow,
then
that's the only
that
tweet
made
he's
him marketable and made
right.
me not marketable. So being a Twitter chat person, you're not marketable as an influencer on Twitter because you tweet so much that it dilutes the engagement per
Hmm.
tweet. And that's what brands use to pick somebody.
Right. Right. That makes sense. But the thing I was reading as far as the authenticity is that people would say, hey, as far as the consumers would say, wow, that person, because they're smaller and they reach out to a smaller group of people, they must really love the product because they must use it. So when they're saying this is a great product, they're endorsing it. In other words, they must really mean what they're saying. So there must be
Well,
an authenticity. I don't know if that's true or
prob-
not, but that was the perception.
probably. It's
Right.
likely that like a celebrity endorsing something most people realize might be getting paid for it and might really not use the product, right? But if you're a small influencer and you burn your truthfulness, you won't be an influencer long. So probably yes, if you're smaller and you really know the people that you're engaging with, you don't want to lead them astray, and hopefully you're not going to lie to them.
Right, right. I would hope that even the macro, as this the macro influencers wouldn't be lying either, but I
Well,
suppose it's
it
just a
depends on
perception.
just because they have 100,000 followers, to me, that wouldn't really make you a macro influencer. I'm thinking of like some celebrity with 30 million followers, right?
Hmm.
If they recommend something that they don't really use because they get paid to do that, is anybody like if you buy that thing and it's not any good, are you really going to hold a grudge for forever? Right? The people that tend to fawn over celebrities aren't as likely to judge them as people who are, maybe know somebody that they consider a peer rather than some famous person.
That is a valid point because I think I went out and bought mascara one time because the princess used it, or I thought, well, hey, she's got really nice eyelashes. She uses it. It must be pretty good. I'll try it because I was looking for a particular feature of the mascara. But it's not
Right.
like I was going to go blame her personally. I don't know her personally. Why would I blame her personally? It's not like I was going to blame her personally if the mascara didn't perform to that level. And she didn't endorse it. I mean, I didn't feel like she endorsed it. It was just like, oh wow, this person uses this mascara. It's like somebody
Well,
else
yeah,
was saying
I was
it.
going to say it's a different whether they are endorsing something for pay versus they actually use it.
Right,
If they
right.
chose it and that's what they actually use, probably they really like it. I mean, it's possible that if somebody paid you enough, you would use something you didn't really like that well
Hmm.
or that wasn't as good as something else you liked. But for something like that, I think you'd be better off asking the person at the local makeup counter rather than going by what a celebrity does. But see, it depends on the mindset of the person, the follower person, right? Like the celebrity people that follow celebrities can be crazy about it. Like they're just like nuts over a celebrity, kind of like the Beatles phenomenon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not really rational, right?
Right.
And there's actually like celebrity magazines, or back in the day, now maybe blogs, I don't know. Oh, we took a picture of so and so. She was carrying this kind of handbag. Everybody rush out and buy it, right? That can really make a huge difference. And if you want to talk about influencers, it's really Instagram where all the influencers are that get paid the big bucks.
That makes sense. I remember back in the day when it was all about the magazines and had to go look at, when the magazines would come out, and whether if you didn't have a subscription, you watch, the grocery store, it's like what's coming out on the rack and who's wearing what and what handbag and so forth. But yeah, it could make or break a brand depending on who was wearing what, which shoes, which dress, or, which fashion, which
Right.
handbag.
And there's better kinds of examples, like Oprah's favorite things, right? If your whatever, especially if you were a smaller business, was featured on Oprah's favorite things,
It's like, oh, wow.
that would cause an enormous thing. And you never know. Like, I'll give you one of my pay-per-click days examples. I had a client who made fruitcake. It was a really good fruitcake, not the kind that people want to make jokes about. Really good fruitcake. And we ran ads on Yahoo and Google back in the day. And one year, all of a sudden, I started getting ping after ping after ping. His credit card's been hit. His credit card's been hit. His credit card's been hit. And I went, whoa. And I went in and I put pause on everything. And I thought, what the heck is going on? And what happened was Yahoo used to have a page where they featured stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like 2 days before Christmas, they featured his ad on that page. Well, if they had done it weeks before Christmas, that would have been amazing until he ran
Mm-hmm.
out, right? But they did it 2 days before Christmas, and nobody is really going to pay whatever it would cost to overnight a fruitcake, right?
Right.
And thank God it was Yahoo and not Google, because Yahoo, I contacted them and they actually gave him his money back for those ads, even though he got the clicks, legitimately got the clicks on his ad.
Mm-hmm.
It was legit that none of those clicks are going to convert because it's the day after tomorrow, right?
Right. Right.
If that had happened at Google, Google would have said tough shit, because Google, in another instance, maxed out someone's credit cards. They had multiple credit cards in their pay-per-click account, Google AdWords account, maxed them all out because they were running a local ad and Google mistakenly ran it national or international
Oh.
and spent a fortune, maxed out all this company's credit cards. And when they asked for help, Google said, tough, we'll give you a credit. And they said, we couldn't spend a credit that big in 20 years.
Oh
And
my.
now we have no cash flow to run our business. And Google said, tough.
Oh
Apparently
man.
they were covered by the fine print in some whatever. And so that's about the time I decided pay-per-click was too risky.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't have an AI type thing, to immediately shut it down when it starts overspending. Like, you need
Right.
something that as soon as you get more clicks than is average for you, it immediately stops those ads. And you can't do that if you're a human, because you're not in there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right?
Right. If you are,
And
then you're not very healthy because you're missing out on your sleep and
right.
everything else.
So Yahoo's homepage or whatever was very influential, right? And it would have been awesome 3 or 4 weeks before that happened. But
Right.
unfortunately, that's not what happened. So whoever picked it, featured it the day before, 2 days before. It was like,
It's
And
nice of them that,
so,
yeah, timing wise, that
yeah, so the thing about influencers is for too long, people measured influence by the number of followers you had, which is a terrible influence because you can actually fake followers, buy followers, get followers lots of ways who aren't even most of them online. They're online once in a blue moon. They're not like there all the time. They
Mhm.
measured it by impressions. Yeah, it scrolled by, but did they actually see it? They measured it
Right.
by engagement. So I had fairly high cred numbers for engagement because I was in Twitter chats, and in a Twitter chat, people are engaging with you. But that
Mhm.
didn't necessarily mean I could sell them something, right?
Right, right.
And so the reason influencers are very big on Instagram is that that's a really good place to sell direct, right? So if you're an influencer and you take a photo of yourself wearing something, right? And you're influential to your followers, those followers are likely to buy said something.
Makes sense. It's a very visual.
Yes, my puppy is telling me she wants me to toss her Kong thing. That's why she keeps barking. Um, right. So Instagram, now there used to be, I knew mom bloggers who made a lot of money as influencers doing a blog post review. Maybe it had a video. One of them was once given an entire stainless steel kitchen full of appliances
Wow.
to promote that brand's appliances. And those are usually the smart companies. When they do that, it's a multi blog thing. It's not a one off, right? Like I think most of hers were do three posts X time apart about whatever the product was. And
Mhm.
they made big money because they worked with big brands. Like I think that was Frigidaire, might not have been. It was a big appliance brand. Crayola, Walmart,
Mhm.
really big brands who had deep pockets would pay them a whole lot of money, like thousands of dollars to do 3 posts.
But that almost seems more macro than micro, but that
Well,
would still be micro. Hmm?
the funny thing is their sites had very low traffic, but
Mhm.
they were very influential with the traffic they had,
Right,
right?
right.
So they had very loyal readers. They didn't have a zillion readers,
But
and
loyal.
as SEOs measure popularity, they had really I take that back. They had really high traffic, like 300 to 600,000 visitors a month,
Mhm.
mostly driven by Pinterest back then.
Yep.
But they had like terrible SEO numbers because they didn't do that. They didn't have like a lot of incoming links from other people,
Mhm.
right? So their DA and DR and all that stuff was low, but they had massive traffic and they had very loyal readers who really liked the stuff they recommended, right? Like, who wouldn't love Crayola? I mean, I don't like big
Right.
brands, but I don't even know if Crayola is a big brand. I like Crayola. I think every kid should have at least a 64 count big box of crayons.
Right.
Even
Right.
maybe every adult ought to have their own. They should buy their own 64 count, maybe even
Right.
128 with the little sharpener thing in it. Um,
Right.
right? All kids should have crayons. Hang on. Hey, puppies, behave. Grumpy old lady got mad at the puppy. So, yeah, so influence, if you want to pay an influencer, test it. Don't go crazy with the prices. Make sure they can actually move the needle for you. They actually have to get people to you either get you leads to go on your mailing list, right? So let's say the influencer doesn't actually sell anything much. Maybe they sell one or two here or there, but they get you a whole lot of people that are interested enough to subscribe. All
Mhm.
right. And over time, you can convert those people into sales.
Right.
Something a lot of people don't realize is the way that most people make money, especially if it's like information like ebooks and stuff like that, is not on the first sale. It's on the back end sales. Right? So
Mhm.
you sell one ebook for $9.99 and you get them on your list and then you upsell them. over time, that person, the lifetime value of that person can be very high, even though you may only make a few dollars on what they originally ever bought.
That's where you're
Right.
building trust.
Right. So there's
I mean,
influence that builds your list can be valuable. So can influence that makes immediate sales, which works best for products, right? But I don't think influencers are really as big anymore, except on Instagram. Brand ambassadors are still fairly strong in some things, right? So if you're a software as a service business, right, or you're a hosting company or something like that,
mhm.
I think that a brand ambassador might be still worth working for you, right?
And
But
what about
go out.
TikTok? TikTok seems to be trying to compete for kind of that spot as far as
Well,
Instagram.
yeah, I
Not
can't.
take over, but
Yeah, I don't really know that much about TikTok because I've avoided it, honestly. It's the one social media I never made an account on. Now, I do occasionally see a TikTok video because people
mhm,
share them somewhere else, and you
mhm,
can watch them even though you don't belong there. You don't
right.
sign in or whatever. TikTok, even worse than Facebook, is psychologically manipulating, especially young people. And I don't think that enough parents pay enough attention to the crazy crap that has caused deaths, even on TikTok. The challenges they post that are dangerous, very
Wow.
dangerous. And
I
so,
guess I'm not watching the same TikToks because the stuff I've watched are like little kitties doing things or, puppies or
well, I imagine, it's like the algorithmic thing. If you tend to watch crazy challenges, you get more of them.
right.
And if you never do it, you're not going to see them. Or like gaming, it's like any algorithm, they show you what you're interested in. So if you've never like gone down that rabbit hole, you probably don't see stuff that some other vulnerable person might get nonstop.
That's like I mentioned it to my husband too, because he watches like on Facebook, he'll sit in the waiting room and he'll watch little Facebook videos. I said, "Well, have you ever looked at TikTok?" Because I'm just now getting in. I wasn't into TikTok at all before. He says, "No, I don't look at that," because he knows other drivers that look at it, try to find little nudie videos. And I'm like, nudie videos on TikTok? I've never seen those. But then it's not like I go on TikTok trying to look for nudie videos. I mean,
Well,
why
they're all
why
over
would
Twitter.
I?
Do you ever see the ones on Twitter?
I don't, but then I've never looked for them. So
Well, I don't look for them either, but sometimes they tag me because I have a lot of followers. And I block them because I don't want to see it.
mhm.
Not so, I'm trying to think. They're not normally totally nude, but they might as well be kind of
Mhm.
things.
Right.
And so there, the bad thing is that all of the social media networks, I can't think of one with that exception. There is no, like, when you say, I want to report this tweet for something,
Mhm.
there is no option that says sexually offensive, right? There's no option that says nudity, right? Because apparently those things are okay with platforms because they drive a ton of traffic,
So now
right?
it's okay to be as long you can be fully exposed, and it's up to the parent to keep the child off the platform.
Well, and like they don't make it easy. Like you can't easily say, like, if any platform wants to have adult content, they should cover it up.
Mhm.
Like in the old days, the newsstand had the penthouse, but it had a brown label thing over the top
Right. Right.
so that kids walking by wouldn't see it.
Right.
If Facebook, Twitter, etc., wants to put that kind of stuff out there, there should be a filter. There should be it should be covered up, right? Just like Twitter cracks me up. They're always saying this could be an offensive photo, and it's not, right? It never is,
Mhm.
right? So then, if you ever did see an offensive photo that was covered up, you're probably going to look at it because they're never offensive when I get the thing that says it's offensive. So
It's
I
like
don't know.
the video, video rental places of 30 years ago or whatever, when you go in there, and if you wanted to go in the adult area, it was a separate room,
Yeah, it's a
or it had
separate
a
room.
curtain or something, or a door,
Right.
well, usually a curtain or whatever, but you had to actually go in there, and there was that big sign that said you had to be over 18 or whatever, over whatever whether it was 18, 21, whatever. But I think it was just 18. But still, there had to be at least some obvious going into that room
Well, the
and make a
world
statement
has
that you're over 18.
the world has changed. Oh, I mean, they slipped the stuff in decades before we were born. They slipped the stuff in, right, and got away with
Mhm.
some of it.
Mhm.
It's like I always think of when I was a kid, Lucy and Ricky, who were married, had twin beds, right?
And they're
But
married in real life too. I mean, not
yeah,
just
but Bewitched had cousin Sabrina, and Samantha's skirts were entirely too short for a housewife, and Sabrina was over the top, right? You wouldn't think that'd get by the censors. And then the uncle in Bombay or something. There was a lot of adult stuff in there that as a
Mhm.
kid you wouldn't know. Like I only know because like sometimes I'll watch really old TV shows on
Mhm.
YouTube because they're less offensive than the new TV stuff, right?
Yep.
And so now you look at it and go, but back then you wouldn't have caught it. It's just like cartoons. They put adult stuff in there for the parents that are watching the cartoon, but theoretically the child doesn't know it's there in theory.
But they're actually being trained. It's like when you talk about the pedophilia being groomed ahead of time. It's almost like
Well,
the
yeah,
kids
the
are being
subliminal stuff in
yep.
Disney, for example, there are videos
Oh,
on YouTube that will show you the sexualization of stuff that's in Disney that most adult people never knew was there, right? Or they wouldn't let their kids watch that stuff.
we didn't for a
So,
long time, but we somehow they went to school and they started getting exposed to Disney, even though it's a whole nother topic, but we tried to
yeah.
keep them anyway.
Yeah, that's why
With
homeschooling is a big thing now
yep, that makes
because you
sense.
cannot the world has gone so far in one direction that you cannot keep your children from being exposed to stuff that you have effectively blocked in your own home. And so that's why that is a super big deal now. And but influencers, let's see. Do you think influencer is not as popular a term anymore? I think there's a new one. Brand ambassador is one of them. It's still viable for some people
Mhm.
in some markets.
I think maybe the recommendation as we're closing is go research it and see if it works for you, if it's something that you want to pursue, and if it works for your personality, your business, and for your audience.
Right. And it's probably going to be Instagram. It might be TikTok. Um, it not much of anything else. Although using a personality to run ads on Facebook could work.
Mhm.
I mean, there's lots of things that could work, but
Yep.
you just have to go at it wisely and don't blow too much money testing
I was just
things.
gonna just gonna say that. Yes, that's good advice. Well, thank you, Gail. Appreciate the chat, and thank you all for tuning in to Next Level Success Roundtable. And we hope to see you next time, same place, same time.